So hey guys, this is Nila. Welcome back at a new YouTube video. And this is not the type of content which you normally see on this YouTube channel. But with the current things going on in our world, I wanted to share my personal view and my personal take on the situation. And I would like to share it to you guys to maybe give you a different perspective. So what, I'll just hop onto the topic. So we have seen that there's two types of doctrine which countries possess. Just to give you an example of those two is that sometimes countries go very straightforward. To give you an example is the Israel nuclear doctrine, where the state of Israel neither confirms nor denies that it has nuclear weapons or not, to make sure that it is at a point where it can put up a deterrence against the other Middle Eastern states that okay, we have nuclear weapons. At the same time, it gives that vagueness to the United States that the states in Middle East which supports United States, they can't directly say okay, Israel has nuclear weapons, now we also need it. On the other hand, where you pursue a very straightforward military doctrine, we can have an example of North Korea or Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, where it clearly states that, okay, we have nuclear weapons, we have acquired it, and they regularly showcase it by firing missiles in Sea of Japan, and then kinda be cozy with US allies to make sure that, okay, we are here just to make sure this is a clear deterrence. When you see the United States Armed Forces, they pursue two different type of doctrines in two different hemispheres. So in Western Hemisphere, they clearly go with the straightforward doctrine. The current US doctrine, which has also been restated by Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, says that the United States government or military will not tolerate any kind of intervention in Western Hemisphere. And in Eastern Hemisphere, they try to go vague because it's far away from US. And the countries are made clear that okay, this is where you can go up to. This is the limit. If you go above that, US is here. And the recent events in Venezuela shows very clearly that US, if it deems necessary, they can do whatever they want. We have seen the similar kind of example with Brazil as well. In financial terms, when Brazil is getting more cozy with BRICS, so there was a lot of sanctions against Brazilian and Brazil, and then the president of United States also said few things about the Brazilian president. At the same time, what we are seeing in Asia is that US is trying to give clear signs that okay, this is the limit. What I think normally people, what I have reading on social media, X or different articles, the reporters are writing that they are comparing the current intervention, which is made by the United States Armed Forces, equivalent to what US did in Libya or Iraq or Afghanistan. Is that similar? But for me, it's not similar. There they stayed. They that all of those interventions, Libya, Bill Clinton, Iraq was majorly done by Bush and then carried out by Obama. They were all liberal governments. I know Bush is a Republican president, but still, they were liberal respective to the current administration. And the current administration makes it very clear that they have done this for oil. Now, if it would have been any other Democratic uh, administration or any other Republican administration as well, I would have expected them to be more politically correct. But the good thing with this administration is that they showcase what they want. They don't sugarcoat things. So they have clearly stated that they have currently taken over the Venezuela as a country. Marco Rubio and the Secretary of War and other US military and government high position government personals are going to run the country. The last year's nuclear peace prize winner, which she also dedicated her award to the President Trump, she would not be in charge. She is not so much popular. That's what the statement from President Trump was. And he has clearly stated, and this statement was for American public, not for us, that there will be no payments. The US government won't be in loss because the US government will basically take over the Venezuelan oil, and that oil they will sell it to other countries. And basically, it's taking over the oil from Venezuelan people without reimbursing them back. And what they are reimbursing is democracy. Now, yes, the last president of Venezuela, he wasn't so much accepted in the whole world. And what we have seen is that we have seen three different type of reactions from people, and this is very scattered all over the world. Most of the European states individually have not condemned, have accepted and welcomed the intervention from the United States. Mexico, on the other hand, have clearly condemned using the UN Charter. Whereas if we see the European Union, collectively they have abstained. It's a very, it's how should I say, how should I put it nicely? It's a very a vague statement where they basically say that we never recognize the last president's illegitimate government, but things should happen with the accordance with the international law and blah 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 blah. The similar strategy has been used by the South Asian states as well, such as India. And whereas if you see Russia or China, in the yesterday's UN Security Council meeting, they clearly stated that the president should be returned back to the Venezuela. But the statement from US ambassador to Security Council was pretty clear that it is not an intervention, whereas it is a US law enforcement thing where basically the DEA agent and FBI was tasked to take over them, and which was a pretty awesome thing to do, because when you have all the pictures with people standing with the Madero with DEA, which is Drug Enforcement Agency, on their chest, that basically says this guy is not a head of state, he's a head of a cartel. And that gives a legitimate power in terms of perception to the US military and government to take him back to New York and to persecute him in court of law. So this is something pretty awesome. And on the topic of capability, come on, no one can question that. They have a higher military power, but I have also seen some articles which says this is the reason you should have nuclear. But I think it's much more about intelligence capabilities, but that's a topic for some other time. And in terms of future perspective, so this is the conclusion of the video. What I think is that United States can use that oil to maybe push back to the countries which are buying, I don't know, Russian oil, and then do something with relations to Ukraine war, because with the current legislation in the US Congress going on, that legislation gives the president some power to put tariffs, more tariffs on countries which are buying Russian oil, such as India, China, and other countries, only because to push back them from Ukraine war. Now, what I personally think is that if tariffs would really work, I mean, okay, countries such as India is very globalized, they are very integrated, so of course tariff would have an issue on us. But if tariffs has a real reaction, it should have worked on Russian Federation as well. US still buys precious metals from them. Maybe try to focus on that aspect as well. But if United States really uses the Venezuelan oil to push back countries from buying Russian oil, that is going to be a very awesome strategy, which I think might be the case, but it's just a prediction. That is a future aspect that I think might happen. I would love to know your views, so please feel free to comment and tell me what do you think, if you think there's something wrong. And this is all for this time, and I will be back if there's some further developments. Until then, take care, bye bye. Thanks for watching this video. This is Nila Pandey signing off.